Many years ago, in a city called Eba, lived a very wealthy man named Ao. He was a major dealer in fabric and was well known through the entire city and beyond. He had experienced what we call the grass to grace story. He was the only child of his parents, who were very poor. However, with determination, hard work, and God's grace, he was able to rise from the clutches of poverty to become a very wealthy and well-known man in Eba. He swore that neither his wife nor his children would ever suffer in their lives. He was married to his beautiful wife. She was called Ada, and together they had two beautiful twin daughters named Ura and Ira. Ao loved his wife and daughters so much and did everything within his means to provide for them. He spoiled his daughters silly, giving them all sorts of junk to eat. Ura and Ira ate more than 8 times a day. As soon as they woke up, their mom would serve them ice cream and some snacks before they had breakfast, which was usually a 3-course meal. 80% of the time, they always had something in their mouth. They were either binging on something or seated at the dining table, whistling or devouring a 3-course meal. They were also very lazy. They literally had 2 maids each who were always at their beck and call. Their maids dressed them for school, just like their maids did. Ao and his wife Ada were very happy with the way their daughters looked. They saw nothing wrong with it. He thought if his daughter being very fat and overweight was evidence that he was a wealthy man. When his educated friends advised him to stop overfeeding his daughter, he would always say,
"If my children are not fat, how will you know that I am wealthy?"
His wife, on the other hand, felt that Ao was overfeeding his daughter a lot, but she believed it was a sign that he really loved them, so she had no reservation about it. Even when her friends tried to advise her, she would always say,
"Leave my husband alone. No, it's better he know."
A lot of people in the school made fun of them. Each time they passed, their classmates would start singing mocking songs like boom boom, and this began to really bother them. They had reached a stage in their lives where boys had already started asking girls out in their class, but no boy wanted to have anything to do with them because they were very fat. So they would always cry and weep in their rooms and even eat up to a 5-liter bowl of ice cream as comfort food to calm themselves. Each time they spoke to their parents about their concerns that no boy in their class was asking them out. They had both graduated from the university and they both came out with first-class honors. They were so happy, and so were their parents. However, their father refused his daughters working despite the fact that they had very good results and could easily have gotten jobs on their own.
Many men will queue in line to marry you. Just say the word, every man would want a taste of my wealth. And if no man comes for your hand in marriage, which is very unlikely, then trust me, I will buy a husband for you. It's that simple.
He replied, smiling and trying to reassure his daughters. A few years later, Ura and Ira said,
"Dad, Mom, all the boys in our class see us as fat and ugly. I'm afraid that if boys are finding it very difficult to ask us out to be their girlfriends now, how much more when we are older? Do you think we would ever get married?"
"Oh, don't bother your pretty head, my daughter."
Anything they asked for, he would literally give to them. He really loved his daughters, and everything he had done for them right from childhood was out of his good intention. However, by this time, the girls had become so overweight that they did not work and did not have many friends, so they were always at home eating and watching TV. But as the years began to pass by, the girls started to get really worried. No one was asking for a relationship with them or even asking for their hand in marriage because they were very overweight. He tried to introduce his daughters to his friend's son, but each time he attempted it, he always received the same reaction. One day, he tried to matchmake his daughters with his best friend Carlos' son, whose name was Eze. Eze had been in the US for over a decade and was invited to their home to see if he would be interested in any of his daughters and possibly ask for their hand in marriage. However, as soon as Eze saw Uju and Erinma, he immediately shouted. He looked at his father and said,
Daddy, are these uncle's daughters? I can't even date these ones, even if I have a mental breakdown, let alone in my current state of sanity. Dad, I'm sorry, I can't do this.
Eze said as he walked out angrily. His father apologized to his longtime friend, saying,
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry about my son's behavior. He was heartbroken, but he was no longer shocked, as this was the kind of typical reaction he had come to expect.
He knew that his friends had even started gossiping about how fat his daughters were, especially those who had advised him to stop overfeeding them when they were still little. His daughters Uju and Erinma were even more devastated and would cry and cry, resorting to eating even more food, as food was the only thing that gave them some sort of comfort. They had both tried several times to lose weight, but had failed. They had tried all sorts of diets, from the keto diet to the egg diet to 1 meal a day. They would be consistent for a few days, maybe 3 days or a week at most, after which they would go back to eating light. Their father had even gotten personal trainer for them, but nothing seemed to work. They would be consistent for a few days, after which they would fall off the wagon and feel very guilty, then pacify themselves with food. It was a continuous cycle. He was so heartbroken. He knew that he had done this to his daughters out of ignorance. Now he had 35-year-old women in his home who were unmarried and overweight. So one day he decided to announce a prize to any of the responsible men who worked for him and were willing to marry any of his daughters. He called his 4 supervisors, Obe, Eo, Nana, and said,
I have called you to let you know that I'm offering a 25% stake in my business to any of you who is willing to marry any of my daughters. Besides that, I will build a new mansion and give that person a whopping sum of 25 million naira.
They were shocked and could not believe their ears. They all looked very surprised.
Sir, did you just say a 25% stake in all your businesses?
Yes, that is what I said, but on the condition that you treat my daughters with respect and take very good care of them.
He replied, looking very serious. So the following week, there was a lot of conversation going on between.
I don't like them, God forbid. Even if he gives me 100% of the stake in his business, I cannot marry any of those overweight girls. I mean, just looking at them makes me feel disgusted, not to mention being with them and living with them.
Obi said, laughing at me.
I know what 25% of his wealth will do for me. It will bring an end to all the generational costs in my foundation, in my whole life. Family, besides, I will be too busy. I will hardly spend 2 hours walking with her daily, and I will not even need to touch her. Whenever I need a woman's touch, I'll reach out to my longtime girlfriend. I could even have children with her secretly, and no one will know.
Eo also shared his view.
All these fat people do not live long. I will just be nice to her and keep feeding her with all sorts of junk. I will pump her with food, and before you know it, she will come down with one sickness or another and die. It's very simple.
They decided that a 25% stake in all of our business was not enough for them to marry any of their boss's daughters. Eo and Obi, on the other hand, felt it was a very good deal. A few months later, Uju and Erinma both got married to Obi and Eo. Their wedding was the talk of the town. They spared no expense whatsoever and made sure their wedding was grand. Obi and Eo were so happy because they felt like they had just hit jackpots. Eo signed over 25% of his stake in the business respectively to Oe and Obi, and also built a mansion for each of them and gave them the 25 million each. Ura and Ira are so happy. On the other hand, were just glad to finally be married, as they were already 36 years old at the time. However, a few months after they got married and had all moved to their respective homes, their father died. He suddenly fell asleep and never woke up. Ura and Ira were so devastated. They wept and wept. Their father had always been the one protecting and looking after them. They did not know how to literally do anything. They feared for what their lives would become. Obe and Io both felt very free, and they began to change towards their wives and maltreated them. Obe sent Ura out of their bedroom, saying that she was too fat, and disgusted, he would always mocking her and laugh at her whenever he saw her eating. He even started going out for night parties when he was alone. He never allowed her to follow him out, telling her that he was very ashamed of her and that the only reason he married her was because of her father's money. Now that her father was no longer alive, he was free to do as he pleased. After all, it was her father with whom who entered a contract soon enough. He even started bringing small girls to his home, and they would all laugh at her and mock her, so she always crying and weeping. She began to miss her dad so much. She remembered how her husband had treated her very nicely, buying flowers and taking her out when her father was alive, but how her husband had suddenly changed immediately after her father had died because he was no longer afraid of everyone. She blamed her father for how fat she was. She was always bitter, always crying and weeping. She had considered taking her life too many times, but could not to do it because she was so scared. So she even resorted to eating more food, as food was the only thing that gave her comfort. Also, Ira's husband Oel was not maltreating her. He was disgusted with her appearance and was always ashamed of going out with her. He didn't even used to touch her. Oel had a secret family with his longtime girlfriend Nanas, with whom who already one child. He even kept several other girlfriends that he slept around with. Ira understood the secret. Oel respected her, even if he did not love her. However, Oe had a different game plan. He continued to feeding Ira. He always bought her ice cream, chocolate, and french fries, even when it was barely an hour after Ira had eaten. Oe would still order more food for her. Ira felt that Oe may not love her, but he liked her enough to give her as much food as she wanted and would not comment on her fate. However, Oe wanted her deed. She was trying to overfeed her so that she would come down with a health challenge and even die faster. Oe wanted to be free of Ira, but did not want to have his hands stained in blood. This was the only way he knew he could achieve this. So Ura and Ira continued to live with their arranged husband. Ira had developed not only diabetes but also high blood pressure due to her weight. She even had very high cholesterol at the same time. The doctor told Ira,
I have spoken to your husband about why you needed a change of lifestyle. If not, you would die.
But Oe continued to make sure that she ate every single thing that doctor told her to abstain from. Even when Ira tried to stop and would say,
Babe, I need to stop eating all this junk food. I don't want to diet.
Oe would keep buying all these things for her.
You're supposed to be helping me lose weight so that I will not die.
Don't mind these doctors, honey. What do they even know? You've been eating chocolates, french fries, ice cream, and did you die? Please don't pay any attention to them.
I would say this, and Ura would stupidly continue. A few months later, Ira ate, fell sick, and died. Her twin sister Ura was so broken. She wept and wept, but on the other hand, Oe was so happy. His plan had worked even faster than he had once. He did not even wait until she was buried before he moved in his longtime girlfriend Nana, who was the mother of his child, into their home. When Ura saw online how Oe had kept a secret family and did not even wait for her late sister, was so surprised. She decided that she was not going to allow herself to die like her sister. She realized that she needed to stop blaming her late father. After all, he did only what he thought was best for them. He did not know better, but now she was an adult and responsible for her decision and her life. It was her responsibility to take care of her health, not her father's or her mother's. So one day she decided to start exercising and eating healthier meal options. However, her husband would look at her and mockingly say,
If you like, eat grass or travel from here to Lagos. You can never lose weight. You are fat, and you will soon drop dead just like your fat sister.
In short, he wished she were the one who died, but she was determined to pick out what was left of her life. Yet she had beat him, so why she continued taking her weight loss very seriously. She also started going through her father's documents to find a loophole in the contract her father had with both her husband Ura and her sister's husband Oe. She wanted to take what rightfully belonged to her. She wanted to collect the 25% stake in her father's business that her father had given to them, but she could not find any loophole in the contract, and she knew that the only way she could ever get what rightfully belonged to her back was if they signed back to her. So in 8 months, she had lost a lot of weight and was now very beautiful. Her husband never believed that she could ever lose weight and did not know that she was that beautiful. He began to show her real love and affection. He stopped cheating on her and even begged her to forgive him.
Oh, my beautiful wife, I'm so sorry for how I treated you in the past. Please find a place in your heart to forgive me.
To his surprise, she would forgive him. So they began to behave like lovers. They having fun, and he even told her that he wanted them to start having children. And she agreed. She had her own plans. She wanted her husband to trust her with all his heart before she struck. So one day, they went out to have fun as usual, but this time she also invited her brother-in-law Oe. When they were all tipsy, she brought out some documents for them to sign.
What is this?
It's nothing serious. Oh, it's just some of my father's businesses that you haven't yet gotten access to. And remember, you both own 25% of my father's properties, so with your signatures appended to this document, you'll be able to have full access to the other businesses.
She said, trying to convince them. And so Oe and Obi both signed through all documents, not knowing what they were. It was unknown to them that they had transferred all their shares to Ura and also transferred the ownership of the mansions that her father had built for them. Ura was so happy that over the next 2 weeks she was able to tie up every loose and made sure that she had successfully completed the legal transfer of all their shares and her father's properties back to her name. She ensured that except for the money they had in their bank accounts, everything else that belonged to her father had been transferred back to her. A few weeks later, she got the police to arrest Obi and Oe and threw them out of the company, saying,
You thieves! Despite all the doctor's warnings, even when my sister did not want to eat and was fighting for her life, you made sure she kept on eating all that junk until she died. And you, Obi, you brought girls into our matrimonial home and insulted me just because I was fat. Well, I have to break it to you both, but as of today, you are no longer shareholders of my father's company. And not just that, but you have also transferred the houses that my father gave to me. Now, if I ever see you anywhere around me or my father's houses, I will lock you up. I have gotten a restraining order from the court.
A few months later, she continued to live a healthy life, and in a few months, she met a young man named Buko. They both fell in love and got married, and so she continued to live happily ever after while her ex-husband Obi and Oe and their children had become very poor and were now living from hand to mouth. Hi friends, it's me again. Thank you so much for watching my story to the end. I would like to hear your thoughts in the comment section. What are your thoughts? What do you really think about parents who overfeed their children and cannot say no to them? Do you think it's a sign of love or a sign of stupidity? Please share your opinions with me in the comment section, and please support me by subscribing to my channel, liking my videos and sharing them with your loved one. Until I come your way again with more interesting stories. Bye.